Hey guys, how is it going? Now today's video is all about, I'm not going to be showing you how to make sourdough, I'm actually going to be telling you why sourdough is actually healthier and also one of the healthiest breads you can actually imbibe. So are you ready? Let's get ready. So what is sourdough? So sourdough is actually one of the oldest forms of grain fermentation and is actually the oldest type of bread known to man. And it's believed to have originated in ancient Egypt times, around 1500 years before Christ. And it remained a customary form of bread leavening until baker's yeast replaced it. But that only happened a few centuries ago. Now, a leavened bread is a bread whose dough rises during the bread making process as a result of the gas being produced as the grain ferments. Do we get that? Now, most leavened breads use commercial baker's yeast to help the dough rise, which is not good. However, traditional sourdough fermentation relies on wild yeast and lactic acid and bacteria that are naturally present in the flour itself to allow the bread to rise and the leaven to rise. So wild yeast, the stuff we use for sourdough, is a much more resilient and acidic sort of type of baker's yeast. And this is what actually allows the work of all the bread combining and everything together with the sort of lactic acid and producing bacteria to help the dough rise. So the mix of wild yeast, lactic acid and bacteria, the flour and the water, which all used to make the sourdough bread, that is called the starter, which I've given you videos for how to make. We use it every time, so starter is so important. So during the bread making process, the starter ferments the sugars in the dough, which helps the bread to rise and acquire its characteristic taste. Now, sourdough bread takes much longer to ferment and rise than any other type of bread, which is what creates its particular texture and why I use it personally as a way to sort of explain it and sort of use it as a great example to describe how leading a mindful existence can partially parallel to baking a loaf of sourdough. Because even though the majority of civilization, that's obviously everyone else apart from us, they want things instantly, they want it now, on the dot. That's just the way the world works now. People just want things straight away. But I've found, and this is how I use the sourdough process to show people how to sort of live a more mindful existence, that the simple act of just sitting back and allowing things to happen and observing it, it heavily increases the chance of whatever issue it is you may be experiencing or may need to resolve or lessen, and it sort of helps sort of decrease the impact that particular issue might have on you, and it's done much more naturally. So if you want to learn more about this, please subscribe to my channel and ask any questions down below, obviously, and obviously do click the like button, subscribe, whatever, because I also offer mindful baking classes, hence obviously the Mindful Baker, hence my name, where you will be able to obviously not only learn about how to make a beautiful loaf of sourdough, and I do pizza and I do lots of other breads, but you'll also learn how to live a much more sort of mindful and present existence at the same time. So why is this process that I teach and tell people all about better? Why is sourdough better? And one of the sort of strongest main reasons is that it's more nutritious than regular bread. More nutritious than regular bread. Said that right? So although sourdough bread is often made from the same flour as other types of bread, the fermentation process improves its nutritional profile in several ways. Now, for starters, see what I did there? Starters? It's a baker's joke. For starters, whole grain breads contain a great amount of vitamins and minerals, and it also includes potassium, phosphate, magnesium and zinc. Now, unfortunately, the absorption of these minerals is limited by the presence of phytic acid, which is commonly referred to as a phytate. Now, phytates are considered anti-nutrients because they bind to minerals, reducing your body's ability to absorb them. Now, interestingly, the lactic acid bacteria found in sourdough bread lowers the bread's pH, which helps degrade phytates. So this results in a bread that has a much lower phytate content than any other type of bread. So it is estimated that the phytate content in a sourdough bread is 24 to 50% less than that of conventional bread, like the yeast fermented bread, like, I don't know, the crap you buy from a supermarket. So lower phytate levels increase mineral absorption, which is one of the ways in which sourdough bread is more nutritious than conventional bread. And moreover, studies show that the lactic acid bacteria present in sourdough bread have the ability to release antioxidants during sourdough fermentation. Now, sourdough's longer fermentation time helps improve the flavour and texture of whole grain bread. And this is why many people are more likely to opt for a whole grain bread, thereby promoting a higher consumption of fibre and nutrition in the bread, nutritionally rich bread. So on top of the nutrients, it's also easier to digest. So sourdough's bread is often, easier to digest than it's the fermented baker's yeast stuff. So sourdough bread has prebiotic content and probiotic-like properties. I shall explain. So prebiotics are non-digestible fibres that feed the beneficial bacteria in your gut, while probiotic are beneficial bacteria found in certain foods and supplements. So regularly consuming both may help your gut health, easing digestion. So sourdough fermentation may also degrade gluten to a greater extent than baker's yeast. And gluten, as I'm sure many of you know, and as I have learned because my fiancée is a celiac, so she's gluten intolerant. So gluten is a type of protein found in certain grains, and it can cause digestive problems in people who are sensitive or allergic to it. So gluten intolerance or gluten tolerance varies from person to person, depending on whether in or to or whatever. Now, some have no visible issues digesting gluten, but others it can cause stomach pain, bloating, diarrhea, or constipation. So sourdough bread actually lowers gluten content, and it may make it easier to tolerate for individuals sensitive to gluten. Now, sadly, my fiancée, she's a celiac, and she has as yet to let me know that there is no problem eating my sourdough, but I'm still working on it. But research has shown that sourdough fermentation process may actually help improve the taste, the texture, and nutrients available of gluten-free bread. So this makes gluten-free sourdough bread a possible option for gluten-sensitive people. But keep in mind that sourdough fermentation, it still does not completely degrade gluten itself. So sourdough bread contains obviously wheat and barley and rye, and it should be avoided by people who are gluten intolerant or people who have celiac disease, like obviously my fiancée. But I am working constantly to make a sourdough gluten-free version of bread, which will hopefully be with you as soon as I have created it. Because there are a lot of them around, but they just don't taste like it, they don't feel like it, they don't have the right texture. But I'm working on it and we will get there. So I've covered the nutrients, I've covered the benefits it has to your gut, and also this is another really important thing, it can actually be better for your blood sugar control. So sourdough bread has a better effect on blood sugar and the insulin levels better on your blood levels and your insulin levels than other types of bread. So sourdough fermentation modifies the structure of carb molecules and this reduces the bread's glycemic index, so the GI, and slows down the speed at which sugars enter the bloodstream. So the GI is a measure of how a food affects blood sugar. Foods with a lower GI are less likely to produce a spike in blood sugar levels, which if you're diabetic or if you have issues with weight, that's a big problem. So sourdough is the way forward for that. So in addition to the lactic acid bacteria found in the dough that produces the organic acids during fermentation, which it does actually delay the stomach emptying and prevents a spike in the blood sugar in a way similar, not that you should drink this, but similar to vinegar. I mean, vinegar is very tasty, but give it a go. Sourdough bread is a great alternative to conventional bread, so the crap you get in the supermarket. Okay, its lower phytate levels makes it more nutritious and easier to digest. And not only that, sourdough bread also seems less likely to spike your blood sugar levels, which makes it an option for those monitoring their blood sugar. So, all things considered, it's certainly worth giving it a try, and it's bloody tasty. And then obviously from my channel you can learn how to make it, you can learn how to do the starter, and you can learn all of these other things which I'm offering and showing people. So please guys, like I said before, sign up, share, like, ask questions, and just get eating sourdough. It's brilliant. Okay guys, I will see you soon. Bye bye.